The doctor examined Nadia and informed her that she could be discharged. This news brought her joy, as she would be able to go home earlier than expected. Pavel Yurievich, her doctor, assured her that she would recover faster in the comfort of her own home. Nadia decided not to call her husband Sergei, who was at work. She wanted to surprise him by making her own way home on the bus, as her bag was not heavy. She imagined how happy Sergei would be to come home and find his beloved wife and a delicious dinner waiting for him. Moreover, he had promised her a surprise as well, so it seemed only fair. Nadia and Sergei had been married for only 6 months. They had met at a friend's wedding, where they had both been witnesses. It so happened that the bride and groom had a terrible quarrel during the event. The bride's ex-boyfriend had shown up and tried to take her away, which had made the groom jealous. Nadia and Sergei had spent an hour mediating and successfully reconciling the couple. Finally, the newlyweds had kissed amidst shouts of joy, while Nadia and Sergei had stepped out of the cafe and laughed with relief, realizing how silly it had all been. The most important thing was that their intervention had saved the love between the couple. 3 months later, Sergei and Nadia had filed their marriage documents at the registry office. Although they did not have their own place and were currently living in a rented one-room apartment, they lived together harmoniously. After work, they both rushed home, cooked together, and tidied up together. In the evenings, they enjoyed each other's company, spending quality time under a cozy blanket on the sofa. They loved each other completely, flaws and all. At least, that was what Nadia believed. Upon arriving home, she swiftly discarded her coat and immediately heard voices emanating from the bathroom. Nadia's heart raced with fear as she cautiously approached the door. The unmistakable sound of a woman's voice filled the air, expressing affection and adoration for someone. Nadia's mind raced with disbelief as she realized that her beloved Sergei had brought another woman into their home. Breathing heavily, Nadia slowly backed away from the door, feeling a sense of shame and embarrassment at the thought of being discovered eavesdropping. She glanced around the room and noticed a pile of clothes on the sofa, topped with a vibrant red coat, which only deepened her distress. Thoughts of betrayal overwhelmed her, and she imagined that this woman would replace her in Sergei's life. Tears welled up in Nadia's eyes, and in a distraught state, she hastily fled from the apartment. Descending the stairs from the 3rd floor, she rushed out onto the street, oblivious to the biting cold of the March weather. Lost in her anguish, she continued walking aimlessly, wiping away the tears streaming down her face. Unbeknownst to Nadia, a kind stranger had been observing her disheartened state. Suddenly, she felt a warm sensation envelop her shoulders, and she lifted her head in surprise to find an unfamiliar young man standing before her, draping the edges of his jacket over her chest. "Have you been out in the cold for long?" he asked with a hint of reproach in his voice. Nadia's voice quivered as she mumbled, "Just a little while. I left the hospital today." And the boy asked with caution, casting a sidelong glance at her, "Not from the asylum, I hope?" "No," Nadia shook her head. "I had my appendix removed." And she already wanted to go back, now with angina. "No, I don't. It's just that I came home, and they were there in the bathroom," Nadia explained, unable to hold back her tears any longer. 15 minutes later, Victor, the person Nadia had just met, was in his small but tidy kitchen, pouring hot coffee into a large mug for her. Nadia held the mug in her hands, trying to warm herself and regain composure as she shared her story with him. "Nadia, I really have to leave. If I don't show up for work soon, I'll lose my job, and I really need the money. I left my parents because it doesn't matter. You stay here. Please don't go anywhere. There's food in the fridge, coffee on the table. Just don't do anything foolish. I'll be back in about 4 hours, and we'll figure out what you should do next. All right?" Victor proposed. Nadia nodded, unsure of what steps to take next, but trusting Victor completely. He left and Nadia finished her coffee. To distract herself from her thoughts, she glanced around Victor's apartment when suddenly the phone rang. It was Sergei calling. Frightened, Nadia tossed the phone onto the sofa. It continued to play music, but Nadia couldn't bring herself to answer. "Why aren't you answering?" A woman's voice startled Nadia from behind. She turned quickly to find a pretty girl calmly standing in the doorway of the room. "Who are you?" "I'm Nadia." "What brings you here, Nadia?" "I'm waiting for Victor." The girl circled around Nadia, smirking and shrugging. "Victor is my boyfriend. He's honest, and I haven't seen him going left, at least not yet. Your attire doesn't seem intended for seduction, and your eyes look teary. So I'm curious. Tell me what happened. He brought you home for a reason, right?" Nadia sniffed, her nose slightly red, and began recounting her story to the kind and understanding-eyed girl. Clearly, nothing is clear. "And what does he say?" asked Vika, the girl's name. Nadia replied that she hadn't been able to talk to him. "Let's try a different approach then," suggested Vika. "Since you don't have any clothes, I'll go on a reconnaissance mission to see if things are really as dire as you say." Vika hastily got dressed and soon arrived at Nadia's apartment, pressing the doorbell. The door swung open, and she found herself face to face with a tall girl wearing a short, hastily thrown-together robe that barely covered her backside. Vika couldn't help but giggle and glanced behind her. "Did you run over Sergei after all?" The girl blushed at the presumptuousness and angrily exclaimed, "You audacious little troublemaker. I've had enough of you," reaching out to grab Vika's jacket. Assessing the level of danger, Vika swiftly dodged and hurriedly left the premises. Thankfully, the girl wasn't able to catch up due to her lack of speed. Vika returned to Victor's apartment, slightly out of breath and with little success. Nadia let out a sad sigh, while Vika remained uncomfortably silent. Just then Vidya entered the room. After listening to the girl's story, he offered to personally speak to Sergei. Dialing the number Nadia had provided, he put the call on speakerphone and patiently waited for a response. "Sergei, your wife is here at my place. She witnessed something and doesn't want to talk to you, but she needs clothes," Vidya explained earnestly. "If you truly are a man, gather her belongings and bring them here." A long silence followed before a voice on the other end of the line finally spoke. "Is this some kind of joke?" the voice questioned. In a surprising turn of events, Sergei admitted, "Actually, my wife is in the hospital." "I apologize. I don't have time to talk as movers are delivering furniture to our new apartment." Upon hearing this, Nadia was taken aback. "What furniture, Sergei?" she questioned, unable to hide her confusion and frustration. "Oh, so you're really there?" Sergei replied, his tone changing. "I'm furnishing our new apartment as a surprise for you. And here you are, sitting naked at some man's place." Luckily, Vika stepped in to defend Nadia, saving them from a lengthy explanation. During Nadia's hospital stay, Sergei had managed to find an apartment for rent at a very high price, with an option to buy later on. It was meant to be a surprise for his wife, and he had even bought some furniture to make it more welcoming. However, fate had another surprise in store for them. Another couple, Galia and also Sergei, had already rented the apartment. Luckily, they turned out to be great individuals. Galia, in particular, was an exceptional cook, which instantly endeared her to Sergei. When Nadia returned to the apartment to retrieve her coat, she explained the situation to Galia, who, in a generous gesture, forgave Vika and invited everyone over for a meal of stuffed cabbage. Galia even played a role in helping Vika make amends with Victor's parents. Initially, they had disapproved of their son's relationship with Vika due to their age difference. But with Galia's guidance, Vika baked a magnificent cake, and together with Victor, they presented it to his parents. The cake was so delicious that it changed their minds, allowing Vika to be older, but promising to always feed and support their son. In an unexpected turn of events, this peculiar series of events brought together three extraordinary couples, forging a bond of true friendship that would last a lifetime.